This is Horror Stories. Horror Stories. Horror Stories. Horror Stories.
A TV with strange rules.
I had acquired an old second-hand television from an antique shop a few weeks ago. I liked frequenting these old establishments steeped in history because occasionally I found what could be considered true gems for a collector of objects like myself. I didn't collect only televisions, nor was I an expert in them. I simply liked objects with a retro vintage feel, ones that when you saw them, immediately transported you to another era. In this case, it was a Telefunken television from the early 60s. It was the type of set you have in mind, with a picture tube several centimeters deep. Nothing like today's flat screens, but in my opinion, compensated by a beautiful wooden case that gave it character. Of course, the image was in black and white. The seller demonstrated that it worked without problems before closing the deal. A deal that for me was a real bargain. I lived with my partner and 2 dogs in a house with a garden in a quiet residential area. I had been embarked on a project for some time, which involved adapting part of the basement into a room from another era. The TV fit perfectly on the cabinet in front of the sofa. For its proper functioning, I had to buy some external accessories, which in a way modernized it to adapt it to today's broadcasts. But the TV itself underwent no modification. It worked the first time, and I didn't even have to touch a screw. That was at the beginning, the initial feeling. But after using it for several days, I began to notice strange things that seemed like faults of the device. Sometimes the screen just went blank. Other times, it had interference. One day, after watching a 1940s movie for a while, I got up for a soda, and when I came back, there was a message on the screen that said, "Don't stop watching until the movie is over." I found the message curious. I didn't remember any channel with similar messages, but I didn't give it much importance. Furthermore, as the supposed faults continued to occur, I decided to apply my electronics knowledge and take a look inside. I removed the back cover, and that's when I discovered a small note stuck on the inside of it. The note was handwritten and said, "Rules to survive with the television." I was intrigued and began to read. Rule number 1, don't tune in to channel 13 after midnight. Rule number 2, if you see your own image reflected on the screen, remove your eyes immediately. Rule number 3, avoid watching horror programs on Friday nights. Rule number 4, if the TV turns on by itself, don't ignore it. Rule number 5, don't accept invitations from TV characters, even if they seem friendly. Rule number 6, if the image distorts, turn off the TV and leave the room. Rule number 7, don't try to change channels when the screen is blank. Rule number 8, if the TV displays a written message, follow its instructions to the letter. I read these rules with a mixture of disbelief and fascination. What if the TV I had bought was special? I took it more as a joke. Moreover, the internal review was in vain because I found nothing to fix. Everything seemed to work correctly. What did strike me as strange was finding a couple of integrated circuits that were part of the image output and whose function I didn't know. No matter how much I researched them online, I found nothing. In fact, the letters identifying the model and brand seemed to have been erased. Perhaps due to time, I thought. The point is, they didn't seem to cause malfunction, so I closed the back cover again and assumed that the problems could be solved by using the TV. Often, electrical appliances break down due to lack of use. Maybe that was the reason for all the faults. During the following weeks, I didn't use it much productively, but I did leave it on for several hours to see if the more I kept it running, the fewer faults it had. I didn't notice any improvement. One day, I left the house to do some shopping, and my wife had gone to work. I had left the TV on, and when I returned, the screen was blank, and the dogs were in front of it, agitated, barking incessantly directly at the screen. I was sure that before leaving, it was broadcasting a 1990s action movie that was just starting. I hadn't been away for more than 30 minutes. Then I made the mistake of trying to change the channel, just out of curiosity to see if one of the dogs had pressed another button and put on another channel. I pressed the channel up and down buttons over and over again, but the screen image didn't budge, and suddenly it was as if the white background of the image was getting brighter and brighter, with a light that became more and more powerful, a light that became blinding, flooding every corner of the room. Everything disappeared before me. Everything. I couldn't see anything except the white that filled everything. I don't know how long it lasted, but it was something that seemed eternal to me. I felt like I belonged to nothingness, that I was falling into infinity. I felt that everything was fading away and that I couldn't control it. At the same time, I felt something resembling a freedom that I had never felt before, less intense, but growing little by little. When everything stopped, I felt a sense of loss, as if something were missing from me. The screen was showing images from the action movie again. I didn't understand what had happened, but I knew there was something wrong with that TV. Not much time passed until something strange happened again. It was a Friday night, and I had stayed up late because I didn't have to get up early the next day. The TV was on in the background while I organized the books on one of the shelves, but I wasn't paying much attention. I was focused on my task with the books until suddenly I realized that the TV volume had gone up and someone was repeating the same phrase over and over again. "Hello, young man, I have a proposal for you." I turned around because the repetition was starting to be annoying, and I saw an old man looking like a professor with his glasses, his white hair and beard. He stared at me as he insisted, "Hello, young man, I have a proposal for you." Seeing that I was looking at him as if he could really see me, he asked, "Are you interested?" I couldn't stop looking at the screen, especially from the moment he pointed at me, said my name, and asked me again if I was interested in the proposal. I approached the screen and felt the following words escape from my lips. "What proposal?" "Would you like to be immensely rich?" he replied. "Of course, who wouldn't?" I answered. "I can help you with that," the old man said. "You just have to do one thing for me. Something very simple. Just approach and touch the screen with the palm of your hand." I approached and touched the screen. I felt a slight tingling, reminiscent of the sensation of coming into contact with static electricity. The old man smiled and said a few last words before his image vanished completely behind the images of a current affairs debate program. "In the coming days, I will send you messages that you must fulfill. If you do, you will be rich." I collapsed on the couch as I wondered if that had been real or just a product of my imagination. I don't remember how long I spent pondering, but apparently, in the end, I fell asleep. I was woken up by my wife in the morning when she realized that I hadn't gone to bed. It seemed strange to her, and she went downstairs to find me sleeping peacefully on the couch. The TV was off. I didn't remember turning it off, and my wife told me she found it that way when she went downstairs to see me. That day, we realized that one of the dogs was missing. No matter how much we searched and called, it didn't appear. At night, both dogs took shelter inside the house. During the day, they were free to come and go to the garden through a small side door designed for that purpose. At night, this access was closed to prevent them from going out into the garden. Of course, we were sure that both dogs were inside when the exit was closed. So where the hell had it gone? It should be said that they were not small dogs precisely, as they were two brothers with a Labrador ancestry, although they were not purebred. The other dog behaved strangely. They usually spent hours with me in the basement room. Now there was no way he would even peek down the stairs. If I insisted, he would back away and whimper pitifully. 2 more days passed, and there was still no trace of the lost dog. So we started putting up posters around the area in case someone had seen him somewhere. On the 3rd day, I was watching a movie with my partner on the old TV. Although she didn't share my passion for antiques and didn't like to watch anything in black and white, I managed to convince her. We were comfortably settled on the couch watching when suddenly, in the middle of the screen, a message appeared. The winning number of the lottery in the next draw will be, and then a number appeared. It disappeared almost instantly, but I had time to memorize it. I looked at my partner so suddenly that she looked back at me frightened. "What's wrong?" she said. "Didn't you see the message?" I replied. "What message?" she asked. "On the TV, the winning number of the next lottery draw." "Well, I didn't see anything," she replied. I could tell she didn't believe me, but I was sure of what I had seen, so I didn't hesitate to go to a lottery office to buy my ticket with the number from the message. I wasn't a gambler. I had never been interested in that kind of gambling. This fact also surprised my partner, who did not expect to see me playing the lottery at all. The next day was the draw, and my number came out. I had won. The prize was significant. It wasn't crazy enough to quit working, but it was enough to pay off the mortgage on the house and to indulge ourselves in some good things. The fact that I won the lottery was surprising in itself, but it was even more surprising how it happened. It coincided at that bad moment when we were still looking for our beloved dog, and it was a somewhat bittersweet prize, but nothing compared to what was going to happen one of the following nights. I was quietly reading, reclined on the couch, when suddenly the TV turned on by itself, projecting the image of the same room I was in, but in black and white, of course. In it, exactly the same furniture and layout could be seen, but there was something macabre. With the lack of color, it couldn't be fully appreciated, but there were stains on the couch, as well as on some furniture. From the back of the room, a dog approached slowly. Instinctively, I looked back, just to check that there was no dog in my room. Instead, on the TV, what would be a close-up was getting closer and closer. Then I realized it was Robbie, our lost dog. He looked exactly like him, but there was something strange about him. His gaze was filled with hatred, and he looked aggressive. His teeth and muzzle were stained the same dark color as the stains on the couch. Incredibly, the dog spoke, addressing me with a voice from beyond. "Give me my brother." I got scared and went to the TV to press the power button. Then I saw something even more incredible. The dog began to stick his muzzle through the screen as if it were a 3-dimensional image. I had suspected that the stains on his muzzle and on the couch might be blood, and now I confirmed it. His muzzle, red from blood, protruded more and more as I heard his aggressive growl. Blinded by fear, I kicked the screen and the TV fell backward, hitting the floor. The image turned black. I approached to confirm if the TV had broken. Now the screen was pointing at the ceiling. Suddenly, a message materialized in white letters against the black background. Place the device in the horizontal position, as it was, and never hit it again. I did as it said, and the TV was back in its original position. Another message appeared on the screen. Sit down. So I did. My wife told me she found me sitting in front of the screen with a blank stare when she woke up the next morning. The couch was covered in bloodstains. My hands were covered in blood. At my feet lay Ranger, our other dog, bathed in a pool of blood. She said I didn't react to anything she did to try to bring me back to consciousness. So she called an ambulance, which took me to the nearest hospital. She told me I was under observation for 2 days, and they couldn't snap me out of my catatonic state. So eventually, I was transferred to the psychiatric hospital. It took several weeks for me to begin to show small signs of understanding the environment around me. In the early moments of my consciousness, I couldn't even move. Gradually, I began to regain my motor functions and with them, my memories. Still vague memories of how I ended the lives of our 2 dogs, including Robbie, whom I had buried in the garden, both of whom I loved madly. How was it possible that I had done that? And what terrifies me the most? What could I have done if circumstances hadn't ended up with my bones in the hospital? 5 years have passed since then, and I have finally been released from the psychiatric hospital. I still feel something strange about myself, but now at least I'm aware of all my actions, and during all this time, I had no failures in my memory. The TV remains forgotten in the basement, and for now, I have no intention of putting it back into operation. What I do have as a goal is to thoroughly investigate its origin, to find out what caused me to lose 5 years of my life. Although no one believes me, I know that everything that happened to me was because of that damn invention, and I won't stop until I uncover what it's hiding.